Hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me, Miss Shannon, and our friend the Sun again today as we continue to explore Sun, 1 in a Billion, written by Stacey McAnulty and illustrated by Stevie Lewis. We've talked before about how Sun, 1 in a Billion has facts like an informational or nonfiction text, but it also seems like a fiction text. This is because it pretends the sun is a living character with a personality and feelings, even though in real life we know the sun is not alive. So, it has some elements of informational nonfiction texts and some elements of fiction texts. The author combined fiction and nonfiction genres to create this book, which is a huge part of her writing style. When we mention an author's style, we're talking about the way a writer writes, the decisions they make, and the techniques they use to give their work a certain tone or feeling. Different writers have different styles. Stacey McAnulty has written many books in this same style, combining information with imagination to make them more enjoyable. If you like this one, you should read more of her work. She has one about the moon, one about the earth, and another about the ocean. Now, we're going to think about the point of view from which this book was written, because it's a huge part of the author's writing style. So, what is point of view? In a text, point of view is the way the one telling the story sees and explains the characters, places, or events they observe. So if we want to figure out whose point of view Sun, 1 in a Billion is written from, we first need to ask ourselves, who's talking to us when we read this text? Watch me look at this book and figure out whose point of view it's written from, or who's talking to us when we read and tells us what's happening. I see a clue right here on the title page. It says the book is written by Sun with Stacey McAnulty and illustrated by Sun with Stevie Lewis. That's strange. I've never seen that on a title page before in a book like this, and I know the Sun can't actually write words and draw illustrations. I'm going to read the first page and see if I can find more clues to help me figure out the point of view from which this text is written. You can read with me. Once upon a time, about 4.6 billion years ago, a magnificent and important star was born. And that magnificent and important star was me, your sun, with a capital S. Oh, it says me. So the character talking to us in this book just called itself me, and then it tells us it's the sun. That's why the title page said it was by Sun, because the sun is telling the story. The author added that detail to the title page to make that fun, imaginative part of her style even stronger, and give us a clue about who will be telling the story. So now we know that this text is written from the sun's point of view. That means that as we read, we're only getting the thoughts and feelings of the sun. We have to guess the thoughts and feelings of other characters in the text. When texts are written from the perspective of a character actually in the story, it's called first-person point of view. This is very different than another point of view, which is called third person. In third-person point of view, the story's being told by someone not involved in it at all, called a narrator. When texts are written from third-person point of view, you'll see words like she, his, and them, instead of ones like I and me that you'd find in a first-person point of view text. This is because a third-person narrator isn't in the story, so they're always talking about other characters, not themselves. So, a quick tip when you're reading other books in the future: if you're trying to figure out which point of view a text is written from, the pronouns, words like I, me, he, she, and they, can give you great information. Now that we know how first and third person point of view work, let's think a little more about how point of view affects what we learn from the text. On this page, the sun tells us that it's much bigger than the moon, but the moon is much closer to Earth. So, we know what the sun is thinking about here because it tells us, but we don't know what the moon or Earth are thinking, do we? We have no idea. We can see that they're smiling and seem happy, but we can't be sure why. Why do you think the moon is smiling here? You could be right. I think maybe it's smiling because it loves being so close to its best buddy, the Earth. But we'll never know for sure because this book doesn't tell us anything from the moon's perspective. We simply have to guess. We can use the pictures and text to make a good guess, but it's still just a guess. But what if this book was written from third-person point of view, with a narrator not in the book at all? Guess what? When texts are written from an outside narrator's point of view, you can learn what multiple characters are thinking and feeling, because you're not always limited to only one character's thoughts. So, let's pretend we're going to rewrite this page from a third-person narrator's point of view. What would we need to change to include both characters' feelings? Yes, it could say something like, "The sun thinks it's the most amazing because it's bigger than the moon, but the moon actually doesn't care about size. It's really happy because it's always right beside its best buddy, the Earth." That's just the way I chose to do it. You may have chosen something different. With a third-person narrator, there are so many possibilities because you can get into any character's head and find out what they're thinking. Let's do another one. On these pages, the sun tells us that it's the center of the solar system, and we know that makes the sun feel good about itself. But because this book is written in first-person point of view by the sun, we have no idea how the other characters on the page are feeling or what they're thinking. Look at all those planets. We have to make our best guess about what's going on in their minds. Let's focus on Saturn and Uranus. We can see that they're smiling and giving each other a high five, but we have no idea why. Did they just win a contest? Are they excited about a snack? Did one of them tell a funny joke? Who knows? If this book were written from one of their perspectives, we would know. Imagine why they might be high-fiving. I'll give you some time to think. What did you come up with? I imagined that they're celebrating because they just worked together to save a star from falling out of the galaxy. You may have imagined something different, and that's okay. Either way, if we knew their thoughts and feelings, this page would sound very different. The sun may not be the center of attention if we could also hear from other characters. Now that we've thought about the different points of view of some characters in this book, let's think about how your point of view could be different from the sun's. Let's reread 2 pages. You can read with me. Can you hang out for 8 minutes? That's how long it takes my light to reach Earth. Yep, I give you heat and light. You're welcome. I'm so important that Earthlings should name a special day in my honor. We can call it Sunday. Oh, wait. We can tell just from this small part of the book that the sun thinks it is awesome and that everything about it is fabulous. But now, I want you to imagine that you're out working on this farm and it's the hottest day of the year. It's actually the hottest day of your life. Place yourself in these pages. What would it be like having to work outside on the farm under the bright, hot sun? You're probably thinking something like, "It is so hot that hot doesn't even begin to describe it. It's sweltering. You're so hot that you're absolutely miserable." You look around and the animals are also really hot. Keep that in your mind and grab some paper and something to write with. Jot down what the page would say if you explained this picture from your very hot and miserable perspective. Remember that in your writing, you're the one talking about what's going on around you. You can start with, "It is so hot, and add on whatever you want from there. I'll give you a quick minute to write, and while you write, I will write also. So, what did you write? How does this page sound from your perspective? Let me show you mine. It is so hot. I feel like I'm melting. I know the sun is important because we need it for warmth and light, but some days I really wish it would stop shining so hard and let things stay a little cooler around here. Look at it smiling. Does it not realize that it's sending us too much heat right now? I don't even want to be out here near the sun anymore. I'm going inside. Too bad I can't bring the animals with me. I know they want a break from the heat too. Of course, your writing isn't exactly like mine, but that's okay. The important thing is that you wrote it from your perspective or point of view, which is different from the sun's. Let's look at this page from the sun's point of view alongside the same page from my point of view. Are they pretty similar or pretty different? Yes, they're pretty different. If people only read this page from the sun's perspective, they wouldn't realize how hot the people and animals were. If they only read it from my perspective, they wouldn't realize that the sun thinks it's the most wonderful thing around. Isn't it amazing how different a text can be depending on whose point of view it's written from? As you read, you should always think about how a text's point of view impacts what you learn about the characters and events. Today we learned that different writers have different styles, and Stacey McAnulty's style combines information with imagination to make her books really fun and enjoyable. She does this by writing from the first-person perspective of the main character, which in this book is the sun. You explored how the story might change based on different characters' points of view within the text, and you learned about first and third-person point of view. Great work today! When you're reading on your own from now on, ask yourself, what point of view is this text written from? And how does that affect what I know about the characters and events? See you again next time for one last experience with this awesome book, Sun 1 in a Billion. Bye!